Okay, welcome everyone as we learn the terrific limud of Chok Yisrael for Parshas Metzora, Yom Chamishi, day 5, Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. Now remember, we were talking if somebody could not afford to bring 3 animals, the leper, the Metzora, could not afford to bring 3 animals for the Oil Chatas and the Asham. So we said he brings 1 sheep for the guilt offering, then Ushtei Sorim, 2 turtle doves, or Shnei B'nei Yona, or 2 pigeons, Asher Tasig Yodai, which his hand can afford. One is a sin offering, one is a burnt offering. V'tarte shafninin oisrein b'nei yoina desad debek yidei v'echad chatosa v'echad alosa. V'evi oisa, and he brings it by yom hashmini l'tarasai, on the 8th day from his tara, and that means from his tara of the 8th day from the birds. Remember that he dipped in the blood, the live bird, into the blood of the slaughtered bird, together with the cedar wood and the hyssop and the scarlet thread. So he brings these bird offerings on the 8th day of his purification, El HaKayin, to the Kayin al Pesach Oil Mayid, to the door of the Oil Mayid. Remember we said that was the eastern gate. Lifnei Hashem, before Hashem, v'yaysi yasan b'yomas minah l'duchtei l'vas kahana l'sra mashkin zimna kodam arinai. Rashi says b'yom hashmini l'tarasei, that's shmini l'tziparim, as I explained, 8th day from the earlier ritual with the birds, ulazas eitzeres, with the sprinkling together with the cedar wood, v'ezav the hyssop, u'shnei salas, and the scarlet thread. The lokach hakayin es keves ha'osham, the kayin takes the lamb of the osham, ves loig hashemen, and the loig of oil, v'heinis v'yisam hakayin, and the kayin waves them. Tenufa l'fnei Hashem, a waving before Hashem, v'yisab kana yas imra sada hashama, v'yas log in the mishcha, v'riyam yasoin kana arama kodam arinai, v'shachar es keves ha'osham, and he slaughters the sheep of the guilt offering. The kain takes from the blood of the guilt offering, and he puts it in the middle cartilage of the right ear of the person who's being purified, on his right thumb, and his right big toe. V'yikas yasimr da'ashama v'yisav kana midma da'ashama v'yitin al rum odan da'miz da'ke d'yamina v'alil yon yedei d'yamina v'alil yon riglei d'yamina u'min Hashem, and from the oil of the leg yitzak kayin al kafa kayin asmalis, he pours it preferably on the palm of another kayin's left palm, u'min mishcha yirik kana al yidad kana d'smala. Now if you remember, we said that the child that Elisha resurrected, he told his mother that there would be a famine for 7 years and she should go live elsewhere, and she lived amongst the Philistines. When she came back, people had apprehended her land, had absconded with her land, and she went to cry before the king. Now, the Psukim and Malachim continue. V'amelech medaber al Gehazi nar isha likim lema. The king spoke to Gehazi, the youth who used to be Elisha's shamish. Saper noli, after this great miracle, where Aram heard the footsteps of thousands of troops and they ran away, and we sacked the city, as the Navi prophesied that there would be food would be very cheap on the next day. So he said, Saper nali, please relate to me as kolak doilois asher as Elisha, the great things that Elisha did. Vayhihu mesaper lamelech, and so Gehazi related to the king es asher hechayo es ames, how Elisha brought a child back to life. V'hinei isha asher hechayo es bana, And just then, the woman who Elisha resurrected her child, Soakas Elamelech, came to cry to the king, Al Beisav Al Sada, on her house and on her field that were taken. Vayomer Gehazi, and Gehazi said, look, Adoni HaMelech Zoiso Isha, this is the woman, V'zebana, and this is her child, Asher Echiyah Elisha, that Elisha brought back to life. Vayishal HaMelech L'Isha, the Melech asked the woman, V'tisaper Loi, and she told him that her possessions were taken away when she was away by the Philistines. Vayitan Lo HaMelech Soris Echad Lemar, the king assigned a noble to her and instructed him, Hashev es kol asher la, make sure she gets back whatever is hers, ves kol tfuas hasada, and make sure she is refunded all the tfu of her field, miyayim ozva es haaretz, from the day she had to leave her land, va'ad ota, until now, because those that were in her field took it unlawfully. Now, vayove Elisha Damasek, Elisha had come back to Damasek to try to get back Gehazi, because he pushed him away with two hands. Ben Hadad Melech Aram Chole. Ben Hadad, the king of Aram, took ill. Vayugad Loilemer, and they told him that Bo'isha Likim Areina, that the man of God has arrived here. Vayomer HaMelech El Chazoel, and the king said to Chazoel, to his man, Kach biyodcha mincha, take in your hand a gift, v'leich likras isha likim, go and meet up with the man of God, v'darashta es Hashem me'oso lema, and seek the word of Hashem for him, saying, ha'echya mecholi zeh, will I live from this sickness? And now we learn the wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech in Mishlei. Mishlei uses a lot of symbolisms over here, a lot of metaphors. Tapukei zav, like apples of gold, set b'maskiyos kosef, set in kalim that are plated with silver. Dover al ofnav. It is as beautiful and as handsome when a person says his words arranged each one in the proper order. Now, Shlomo HaMelech says that a person should think before he speaks, and he should say his words in a good seder, in a good order. He just shouldn't talk without thinking and say things all over the place. Nezem Zov, like a golden earring in the ear, the Chali Chosem, and like a beautiful golden necklace, as pleasing as that is, that's Moichia Chacham, so is it pleasing the Musar of a wise man, Al Oizen Shamas, to an ear that's eager to listen. Ketzinas Sheleg B'yom Kotzer, as pleasant as the cold air of snow is on the hot day of harvest in the summer. You know, if there would be a cool air, like the air of snow, on the Yom Kotzer, on the hot, blistering day of the harvest time in the summer, so is it pleasing, Tzir Nemon L'Sholchav, so is it pleasing when the trusted agent of its principal, trusted agent, comes back to tell the principal, the one who sent him, that the mission is accomplished, that v'neshes adoinav yoshev, that restores the soul of his master. In other words, if an agent was sent to do a critical job and he comes back and he says mission accomplished, that's as refreshing and rejuvenating as a cool air on a hot summer day. Nesiyam v'ruach, like clouds and wind, v'geshem ayin, but there's no rain. In other words, there's vapor and there's wind, but there's an absence of rain. So then the clouds are meaningless. So too is ish mishalal b'mata shakar. So too is the person who talks always about giving, but doesn't end up doing it. So it's like mere fluff in the sky. It's worthless. Ba'oirech hapayim yefute kotzen. Since Hashem is long-suffering and He is slow to anger, in the meantime we could appease the king, we could appease the ruler, Hashem, with our tshuva. V'loshen raka, and a soft voice of supplication in our davening, tishbar gorim, could break the bone of gezerah Yisrois, of evil decrees. And now, Rabbi Isai, as we have finished in the Chok, on the 5th day, we finished Masechtas Zachim, we finished Masechtas Menachos, now we start Masechtas Chulin. So our adventure for today is the first parak of Masechtas Chulin. Hakol Sheichetin. Everyone who is familiar with the complex laws of shchita k'tshecht l'chatchila. But if we don't know that you're familiar with the laws, you shouldn't do it. However, u'shchitasen k'sheira. If he does do it, and we test him, and we see he knows what he's doing, he knows the rules, then his shchita b'di'evet is kosher. Chutz mecheres shaita v'katan, except for a deaf mute, an imbecile, and a minor, who, because they don't have das, they don't have maturity, they're not considered competent, we can't trust that they didn't do something wrong. Shema yekalkalu b'shchitasan, lest they mess up with the shchita. However, the kulan sheshachatu, even the chereshayt v'kadon that shechted v'acherin ra'yinai son, and there are acherin oimden al gabam, there are people watching them and see that they did everything right, then shchitasan ksher, the shchita is kosher. Shchitas nachri, the shchita of a guy, as long as he's not a pagan, is nevela. The shchita of a guy is not kosher. However, it's not asabana, because we don't say that he automatically did it to idolatry, that it should be asabana, unless we know that he's a pagan. But it is nevela, it can't be eaten. And since it's nevela, matama b'masa, it contaminates when you touch it or when you carry it. Hashecha b'layla, if somebody shechs in the night without a candle, v'chein asuma sheshachar, a blind person that shechs, b'di evet shchitasa ksher, the shchita is good. Hashecha b'Shabbos, if somebody shechted unwittingly on Shabbos, that means either he forgot that it was Shabbos, or he forgot that shchita was aser, or b'yom HaKippurim, or on Yom Kippur, afal pishem ischai b'nafshe, even though that's a crime that causes, if done willfully, forfeiture of life, on Shabbos, physical life, on Yom Kippur, kares, shchita ksher, the shchita is good, but it is just like on Yom Kippur, you can't eat it on Yom Kippur. On Shabbos, you also can't eat it. You have to wait till after Shabbos, b'chdei sheyasu, that you shouldn't benefit from malacha on Shabbos. Hasheichet b'magal yad, if you shecht with a sickle, Metzora with a sharpened rack, or bekana with a sharpened reed, shchitas ksher. Hakol sheichten, anybody could shecht, even a Yisrael mumar. That means Yisrael that would eat McDonald's because of he's a mumar l'tei avain, but he won't eat it if he has kosher food available. So his shchita is trusted. And you could shecht in the night, l'chatchila with a candle, and you could shecht even if it's on top of the roof, and we don't say that he's shechting to the constellations, and you could shecht on a boat. We don't say that he's shechting to the guardian of the sea. Ubakol shechten, you could shecht with all kinds of sharpened materials. Chutz memagel ktsir, except for a harvesting sickle. You see, this is serrated, and we're afraid that it's going to pull and choke the animal instead of cutting. V'amegera, a saw, v'ashinayim, teeth, v'atziporin. Now, a nail attached to the animal is disqualified because it has to be something detached. But the first three is mipnei shein chaykin, they choke instead of cutting. Ha'sheichet b'magel ktsir b'derech halichasa, if you use a harvesting sickle, but you go in the way, you don't pull back on it, but you go in a frontward motion so that it's on the smooth side of it. Beis Shammai says that it's completely disqualified because of Gzeira. You might do it the other way, and he therefore says that it's even matame, it's even nevela. Beis Hillel says that it makes it tar, but you can't eat it. If you smooth it all out, then harikasakin, then it's like a knife, and it's permitted. Now, there's something called hagrama. In the windpipe is a series of cartilage with skin in between it. Now, the place of the shchita, the mokam hashchita, is up to the tabas ha'elyaina, the circular top cartilage of the trachea, of the windpipe. So, ha'sheichet mitoicha tabas, if you shecht across the upper ring, v'shir b'maloya chut al pnei kula, and its entire circumference, you left a sliver of cartilage above it. So you know you did everything within the upper cartilage. So the din is shlitasek shei. Rabbi Yudai memaloya chut al pnei ruba. You just have to have it in the majority of the circumference, because ruba kekula, as long as the shchita is inside the upper ring of upper cartilage for its majority, that's enough. Hasheichet min atztadin. If somebody shechts from the side of the neck and then goes and cuts through the simanim, the trachea, and the esophagus, shchitas ksheira, the food pipe and the trachea, shchitas ksheira. Hamoilik. Now, in the Beis Hamikdash, there was a special procedure to do birds of kachim by pinching it from the nape of the neck. So hamoilik minat stadim, if you do the pinching from the side of the neck, milikasai psula, the malika is disqualified. Hasheichet mina arif, if somebody does the shchita from the back of the neck, from the nape, shchitasa psula. Hamoilik mina arif, if you do the malika from the nape of the neck, milikasa ksheira, that is the way to do the malika. Hasheichet min hatzava, one who does the shchita from the front of the neck, shchitasa ksheira, that is the way to do shchita. Hamoilek min hatzava, if one pinches from the front of the neck, malikasa psula. Shekola oirif kasha l'malika, the nape is kasha for malika, the kol hatzaver kasha l'shchita, and the neck is kasha l'shchita, and here the Mishnah starts a pattern, which it's going to talk about. Nimsa kasha b'shchita, that which is kosher b'shchita, the front of the neck, pasul b'malika, is disqualified by the pinching. Kosher b'malika, that which is kosher by malika, which is the nape of the neck, pasul b'shchita, is disqualified by shchita. Now, similarly, we know that there are two types of birds that are kosher for bird offerings: tayrin and b'nei yaina, turtle doves and pigeons. Pigeons have to be when they're young. That's why they're called b'nei yaina. Tayrim, turtle doves, have to be when they're mature. So therefore, kosher b'tayrin, that which is kosher by the turtle doves when they're already mature, possible b'nei yaina, they're disqualified by pigeons, because the pigeons are only good when they're young. Kosher b'nei yaina, that which is kosher by the pigeons when they're young, is possible b'tayrin, because tayrin are not good unless they mature. Tchilas hazitziyav, the beginning of the yellowing of the feathers around the neck of these birds, bazeh bazeh pasul, is disqualified by both, because when it's yellowed around the neck, it's too old already for a ben yaina, but it's too young still for a turtle dove. Now, we know there are two rear rituals, paraduma and egla aruf. The paraduma is slaughtered, the red cow, to manufacture the ash which we use in the purification of those that are contaminated by the dead. And the egla arufa had its neck chopped in a ritual when there was an unsolved homicide. Now, kosher b'para, the procedure done on the paraduma of shchita in the front of the neck with a knife, pasul be'egla, because the egla you have to use a hatchet from the back. Kosher be'egla, that which is kosher by the egla, is pasul b'para, because the egla is done with a hatchet from the back, while the paraduma has to be done with a knife from the front. Kosher by kahanim, that which is kosher by kahanim, is possible leviyim. A Levi is disqualified, is enforced retirement at the age of 50. Kahanim could work even if they're 70. Also, a Levi could not sing if his voice was low or hoarse. So kosher makahanim, an old kohen, it's kosher makahanim, possible leviyim, it's possible leviyim. Kosher b'aleviyim, a Levi could do the singing even if he has a mum. But possible kahanim, a kohen can't do the avodah if he has a mum. Now there's a difference between a klei cheres and a klei matkas. An earthenware vessel is not makabel tumah on the outside. If a sheretz touches it on the outside, it's not tumah. Metal keli, if it's touched outside, it is tumah. On the other hand, an earthenware vessel is tummy if you dangle a sheretz into its ear space, even if it doesn't touch it. While a metal keli is not tummy if you dangle it in the ear space. So therefore, says the Mishnah, tar b'klei cheres, that which is tar by a klei cheres, if the sheretz touches it on the outside, tamei b'kol hakelim. By other utensils, if it's touched outside by the sheretz, it will become tamei. Tar b'kol hakelim, that which is tar by all utensils, if you dangle the sheretz in its ear space and it doesn't touch it, it's tar, tamei b'klei cheres. It's tamei by a klei cheres, because the klei cheres is tamei me'avirai. If you just dangle the sheretz in its ear space, it becomes tamei. Tar b'klei eitz, that which is tar by klei eitz, the din is pshutei klei eitz, ain't a mekablim tumah. That means flat wooden boards are not mekabel tumah. They're only mekabel tumah if they have a container, a base kibble. So tar b'klei eitz, that which is tar by a wooden vessel, tamei b'klei matchas, is tamei by metal. Metal is tamei even if it's flat, even if it doesn't have a container, even if it doesn't have a base kibble. Now there's a difference. Matchas, metal, is only tamei when it's fully processed. Even if it's functional, but it's not nigmar malachtai, it's tar. Wood, however, as long as it's functional, even if it's not finished, even if it's not planed, it's still mekabel tumah. So tar b'klei matchas, that which is tar by a metal vessel, because it's not nigmar malachtai, it's not finished, is tamei b'klei eitz. It's tamei by a wooden vessel because it's mekabel tumah, even if it's just functional. Hachayiv bashkedim hamorim. Bitter almonds. Bitter almonds are mekabel tumah only when they're small. I'm not mekabel tumah. Chayiv and tumas and maisvus only when they're small, because when they're small, they're edible. On the other hand, potter b'masukim, the sweet ones are only edible when they're large. Hachayiv b'masukim, so the sweet ones, when they're large, you have to take off ma'aser potter b'morim. The bitter ones, once they're large, they're not edible, and therefore they're potter for ma'aser. Now, mead, which is water that's poured over grapes. Before they ferment, it's still water. So atemed, actually hechmetz, before it ferments, it's only water, and therefore eina nikach bekesef meiser. You can't buy it with money of meiser sheni, because you're not allowed to buy water with money of meiser sheni. Upaisel es a mikvah, since they still have a din of water, the din is a mikvah until it reaches the size of 40 sah, is puzzle if 3 lugin of drawn water falls in it. That's only if it's water. If it's wine or fruit juices, it's only puzzle if it changes the appearance of the mikvah. Mishehechmetz, once it becomes vinegar, once it ferments, then it doesn't have a din of water anymore. So then, nikach b'kesem meiser, you could buy it with kesem meiser, but since it's not water, it won't disqualify the mikvah with 3 lugin. Ve'ena paisel es a mikvah. Ho'achin ha'shutvin. Wow, when I prepared, I skipped this Mishnah. Wow, I can't believe it. Brothers that are partners, kishechayvin bakalbain. The din was when they gave the machzis hashekel, there was a surcharge called a kalban. That means that if it's not coming from the estate, rather, what happened was, if it came from the estate and it's considered the estate is giving the machzis hashekel for them, so then there's no surcharge of the kilbam. There's no surcharge of the kalbain, which is a small surcharge that was added to the machzis hashekel. However, if they already divided it, even if they became partners, then they're regular partners that give the machzis shekel, then there is a chiyuv of kilban. So therefore, the Mishnah says, ha'achin ha'shutfin, kishechayovin b'kalban, when they're chayiv in paying the surcharge, that means they already divided the Yerusha and they partnered up afterwards. P'turim ha'maisa behem, they're patur from giving the maisa behema, the tithe on the animals, where they gave every 10th animal, because the din is regular partners don't have to give maisa behema. On the other hand, kishechayavim b'maisa behema, because it still is all belongs to the estate. Once it belongs to the estate, then the estate is paying for them the machzis hashekel, p'turim and hakalban. They're exempt from the surcharge of the kalban. Kol makom sheyesh mecher, whenever a father could sell his daughter, now he could sell his daughter only until she is a nara. Once she's a nara, once she's 12, she goes free. So kol makom sheyesh mecher ein knas. The din of the penalty in the Torah for seduction and rape is only if she's a nara. So if he could sell her, so she's not yet a nara, then there's no penalty. The kol makom sheyesh knas, when she's 12 and 1 day to 12 and a half, and 1 day where there's a penalty for rape and seduction, ein mecher, there's no sale. Kol makom sheyesh mian, a girl that was married off by her mother or her brother, because her father died, so that's a rabbinical marriage, and that's while she's a ketana. The din is that she could walk away from that marriage with a mere refusal. That's called mian, without a get. So kol makom sheyesh mian ein chalitza. She can't do the ritual of chalitza with her deceased husband's brother because she's a ketana, and a ketana can't do chalitza. The kol makom sheyesh chalitza, if she's already bas mitzvah, so you do chalitza, then ain't mian. There's no more mian. Kol makom sheyesh tekiah, wherever we do a tekiah, that means even where Yom Tov fell out on Friday. So Yom Tov fall out on Friday, we make a tekiah because we're alerting to people that now on Shabbos you can't do food preparation anymore. So the tekiah, the reminder of the blast, shofar blast, reminds them not to do malacha anymore. Then ain't Havdalah. There's no Havdalah. Because Havdalah is done when we go from a holier Kedusha to a lesser Kedusha. But when we go from Yom Tov to Shabbos, there's no Havdalah. The Kol Makom Sheyesh Havdalah, whenever there's Havdalah, that means from Shabbos to Yom Tov, then ain't Tekiah. There's no need for a Tekiah because we don't have to alert someone that something is now, the Kol Makom Sheyesh Havdalah, that means going from Shabbos to Yom Tov, ain't Tekiah, because there's nothing now that's more prohibited. To the contrary, when you go to Yom Tov, it's more permissive. Yom Tov shechal yois be'erev Shabbos, therefore Yom Tov that falls out on Friday, Taikin, they alert people with a tekiah that now they can't do food preparation anymore as soon as Shabbos starts. V'loy mavdilon. There's no Havdalah because you're not going from a Kedusha of greater severity to a Kedusha of less severity. B'motzei Shabbos, when Yom Tov falls out on Sunday, mavdilon, we make Havdalah because we're going from Kedusha Shabbos to Kedusha Yom Tov v'loy Taikin. But we don't need to make a tekiah because there's nothing more prohibitive. To the contrary, it's more permissive. Now, when on Motzei Shabbos we make Havdalah, how do we do Havdalah? Ketzad mavdilin. We say Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'Kodesh. That Hashem differentiates from one Kedusha to another Kedusha. Reb Daisa says we say ben Kodesh Chomer l'Kodesh Akal, from a more severe Kodesh to a lesser Kodesh, but we don't paskin like Rabbi Daisa. The Gemara continues. Heichi Tekeah. We said that when Friday is Yom Tov and we go into Shabbos, so on every Erev Shabbos they used to blow shofar to let people know that Shabbos is coming. When Friday was Yom Tov, they also blew the shofar, but they blew it different. So Heichi Tekeah, what is the change? Rabbi Yehuda Tekeah, they blow umeria mitoch tekiah, and they do the trua together with the tekiah instead of doing it separately. Ravasi says they blow the tekiah and they pause, but in one breath they do the trua, but they do pause. Asking Ravasi behutzel kishmait, say that they pause. May say Yom Tov shchali is be'erev Shabbos. When Yom Tov falls on Erev Shabbos, toikin v'loy marian. Doesn't that sound like that they don't do the true at all? My lav loy marian klal, that they don't do the true at all. Loy. Rabbi Yehuda metaretz l'tamei. Rabbi Yehuda explains it according to his reasoning. V'Ravasi metaretz l'tamei. Ravasi explains it according to his reasoning. Rabbi Yehuda metaretz l'tamei. Rabbi Yehuda explains it according to his reasoning. Loy marian b'fnei atzma. They don't do a trua separately like they do on a normal Friday. Elamitoch tekiah. They do the tekiah and together with it they do the trua. Ravasi metaretz l'tamei. Loy marian b'shtei neshimas. They don't do it in two completely different breaths. Elam neshimachas. They do pause, but they do it in one breath. U'b'motzei Shabbos, on Motzei Shabbos, how do they do the Havdalah? They're mavdil ben kodesh l'kodesh. Heichi Amala, where did they say Amavdil ben Kodesh l'Kodesh? Rabbi Yehuda b'Chavasi Musa. When they finished it, Baruch Ato Hashem, Amavdil ben Kodesh l'Kodesh. B'chein Amar Rab Nachman b'Chavasi Musa. At its conclusion, Rav Shesh's braid, Rav Idi Aimer after Psichasa, even in the beginning of the bracha. However, v'les hilchas kavasi. That's not the law. Rab Dayis Amar ben Kodesh Chomer l'Kodesh Akal. They say between a more severe Kedusha and a less severe Kedusha, the less Hilchas HaKavasei. The halacha is not like him. Amar Reb Zera, Yom Tov shechal yois be'emsa Shabbos, if Yom Tov falls out on Tuesday, Aimer at the end of Yom Tov, they say, Amavdu ben Kodesh l'chol. It makes a difference between Kodesh and Chol. Ben Or l'choshe, ben Yisrael l'amim, ben Yom HaShvi l'sheisish l'mei ha'maisa. The question is, why in the middle of the week do we say, ben Yom HaShvi l'sheisish l'mei ha'maisa? So the Gemara says, my timer, Seder Avdol Sumayna. He's just counting different distinctions. And one of the distinctions is the difference between the 6 days of the week and Shabbos. Now, the Zohar, again a very esoteric Zohar. I made a bracha already, Rabbi say. Rabbi Cheskia Posach v'Amar. Rabbi Cheskia opens up and says, Shema Hashem Tzedek, listen Hashem to righteousness. David HaMelech says, Hakshiva Rinasi, hearken to my song. Hazina Tfilasi, hear my prayer. Beloy Sifsei Mirma, said without lips of deceit. So, says the Zohar, Kama Chaviva Knesset Yisrael. Knesset Yisrael, of course, is what we call the Shechina Kedosha, the Bechina of Malchus. How precious is the Shechina Kamei Kutshe Berichu before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Zer Anpin. The Bechol Zimna de Knesset Yisrael Osis L'Kamei de Kutshe Berichu. Whenever the Shechina comes to unite with the Kutshe Berichu is Daman L'Kivlei. The Hashem, Zer Anpin, makes it itself available to greet the Shechina HaKadosh. Hado Dichsiv, this is what is written, Shema Hashem Tzedek, listen to Hashem Tzedek. Tzedek is, of course, the Bechina of Malchus. Hakshiva Rinasi, hear my song. Hazina Tfilasi, hearken to my prayer. I'm a David. David HaMelech says he is always in devekis with the Shechina. Ano is katarna b'Knesset Yisrael. I am in a state of devekis with the Shechina. When the Shechina comes before you, ananami hochi ishtakhan. Since I'm in devekis with the Shechina, I am there as well. Or begin kach shema Hashem tzedek. Hearken Hashem to tzedek. That's the Bechina of Malchus, the Bechina of Shechina, B'Kadmeisa, and Ulabasar, and therefore, since I am dovik with the Shechina, Hakshiva Rinasi, hearken to my song, Hazina Tfilasi, listen to my prayer. It should be beloy sifsei mirma, without lips of deceit. My beloy sifsei mirma, what does that mean? Elahachi teneinan, so we are taught in the Mishnah, Kol mila o mila ditzloisa, every word of prayer, the apik barnash mi pume, that a person produces from his mouth, solkis la'ela, rises above, ovokis rikian, and splits firmaments. It breaks through many, many heavens. Va'olis la'asad olis, it rises to the place that it rises. Taman, there is bechana sahi mila. Boy, the imagery of this is very powerful. There, the word of our prayer is tested. Ihi mila de kashra ilai. If it is a worthy word or not. In other words, if it's a word of somebody who is focused on the Rabbeinu Shalom, if it is a word that said betara, if it's a word that said bekavana. Ihi mila de kasha. If it is a worthy word, alin la kame malka kadisha, it goes before the holy king, l'me'abad ru'usa, and the king does its will. The ilav, but if not, if it's said without any thought, if it's said in distraction, if it's said with impurity, the ilav satin la lavar, it's turned aside to outside. The isar bahu mila, and that word, it's not parav. It awakens ruach akra. It awakens a word of tuma, a word of sitra akra. The Tachazeh, you should come and see. Ksiv Baby Yosef, when he was in the Beis HaSoyer, when he was in the jail, after Potiphar threw him in the jail, it says, Inu bakevel ragloi. His foot was afflicted with chains. Ad emasai inu bakeved ragloi. For how long was his foot afflicted with chains? Ad eis bo devoro, until his words came. Imris Hashem tzrafosu, and the word of Hashem checked it out. Ad eis bo devoro, until the time where his words came. The man, whose words? El ad eis bo devoro, until the time that the word of the Yosef came, v'ispachin, and was inspected, hahimila, and that's what it says, Imras Hashem tzirafosu, the word of Hashem inspected it, kedain, and then, when it was found worthy, Shalach Melech, Hashem sent, Vayatireu, released him, Moishel Amin, the ruler of the nations, that's Paro, Vayifatcheyu, and released him from the prison. Now we learn the very timely Musar of Rabbeinu Yaina from Shari Tshuva. May Ikriat Tshuva, from one of the major elements of Tshuva, Habusha, is the shame we feel from our sin. Ke'inyan shenema, like it says in Yirmiyah, Boishti v'gam lichlamti, I am embarrassed and distressed, ki nosasi cherpas nurai, because I am carrying the shame of my youth. V'hine achaita yevosh ma'od, the sinner is very embarrassed, lavor averis l'fnei b'nei adam, to transgress sins before people. V'yikolim, and he was disgraced, im yargishu, if they sense, v'yakiru b'aveirosa, when they recognize his transgressions. Ve'ech lo yevoshim in abari yisparach. How could it be that a person is not embarrassed from the Creator? Ve'ein zeh ki im lefi hayoyis Hashem yisbarach rachok mikil yosef. This is only because Hashem is far from the counsel of his kidneys. Al kain yevosh min hanivram. Therefore, he's embarrassed from people that are humans. V'lo yevosh, and he's not afraid min abari yisbarach, from the Creator. V'amar Rabbeinu Seinu Zichron Levracha, ki b'shas petiras Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai passed away, Amar lo l'talmidov Rabbeinu b'chenu. The Talmidim said, Rabbi, bless us. Amar lahem, yiratzon she'emor shamayim aleichem k'mor basa b'dam. May the fear of heaven be like the fear of humans. Amar lo Rabbeinu. So they said to him, Rabbi, ad kan v'lo yosef, our teacher, only that? Only like humans? Amar lahem malavai. Would it be that you feel the fear of God like the fear of people that are in front of you? Tedu, shari adam over avera b'seiser, a person does a sin in secret, v'aymer shelo yirani adam, he just, nobody should see him. V'amedrega el yoyna b'zeh, and the higher level is sheyikalem ha'adam alav v'noisa milfnei Hashem yizbach. He should be embarrassed for things that are only before Hashem. The inyan achlama, the idea of shame, ha'hargosha babusha, the feeling of shame, and the ishtanus ziv panav, the inyan achlama, the idea of disgrace, is ha'argosha bebusha, is a sense of shame, v'ishtana ziv panav, and his very face should fall with the idea that the Rabbeinu Shalom sees his disgrace. Kinyan shenamar kisasa klima panai, shame covers my face. Ubechol makam tira klima, in all places, seeing the disgrace, niskeres achar abusha, is mentioned after shame. Kihi yisera min abusha. It's more than shame. Shame and a feeling an appearance of disgrace. Like it says, Boishu v'kolmu. I'm ashamed and I'm disgraced. Boishti v'gam l'chlamti. I'm ashamed and I feel disgrace. When the sinner sees, Ki Hashem Yizbarach ma'aver al avoinai. Hashem passes over his sin. Umarich loy. And he gives him a length of time. Ve'inenu nifra mimenu. He doesn't punish him. V'loy kechatov osaloi. And he doesn't strike like his sins. V'loy kavinois of gamal olav. And not like his iniquities does he repay him. Yosef bushabel vava. He should feel more shame in his heart. Haloy achaitei lamelech pasav adam. If a person sins against a human king, or voigaboy, and he acts treacherous, and the king forgives him, he'll be embarrassed from the king. V'chein kosev laman tiskari, that I remember, or voished and embarrassed mikol aliloi sayich, from all my behaviors. Bechafri loch l'chol asher osis. Laman tiskari, you should remember, or voished and be embarrassed, mikol aliloi sayich, from all your misdeeds. Bechapri loch, when I atone for you, l'chol asher osis, when I forgive and wipe away all that you did. So we should feel a sense of shame. Now, shame is a very healthy attitude. When we do something and we feel shame, it brings forgiveness for all sins. We find by Shol She'amar that he said to Shmuel that I wanted to find out, I wasn't answered in dreams, I wasn't answered by prophets. But he didn't say that I wasn't answered by the Urim V'Tumim, because he was embarrassed that he killed Noivir HaKahanim, caused Noivir HaKahanim to be killed. V'loi Hisker, he didn't mention that he wasn't answered by the Urim V'Tumim or by the Kohen Gadol. Ki nizbayesh la'askiram, he was embarrassed to mention the Kohanim mipnei she'harag anshe Noivir HaKahanim, because he caused the people of Noivir HaKahanim to be killed, because they helped David HaMelech. The Amalei Shmuel, because he was embarrassed, Shmuel told him, Machar, tomorrow, Ato v'necha imi, you and your children will be with me. Meaning, with me in my madrega. Imi b'michitzasi, because he was ashamed, he was considered in the level of Shmuel, because his sins were forgiven. V'yasig odam madregas habusha. How does a person attain this? A person can reach the level of shame bispoided when he meditates lachshav bigdulus Hashem, to think about the greatness of Hashem. V'kama rabba rois hamamre espiv, and how bad is he who rebels against him. Ubezachrei tomid, when he remembers constantly, Hashem roya ma'asav, Hashem sees everything that he does. Not only that, uvaychem kil Yosef, he knows what's going on in his inner mind and his kidneys. V'tzayfa machshavaysim, and he sees his thoughts. That will bring a person to the healthy level of shame. And now the Rambam continues in the Maisa Karbonis, Hachatas hanecholos, the sin offerings that are eaten. That this is in contrast to those sin offerings that are burnt, and its blood is put in the inner altar, like the chatas brought for avodah zarah, the chatas brought for an erroneous psak of bezdin. But normal sin offerings that are eaten, the garden variety sin offering, like if somebody was Chal Shabbos b'shoigeg, or somebody slept with his sister b'shoigeg, or somebody ate chelav adam b'shoigeg, damon ton arba matonos al arba kanas mizbeach. You have to apply the blood of this sin offering on the four corners of the outside altar. You have to do 4 placements on the 4 corners. The outer altar, and it's done above the chut hasikra. Remember we said there was a red line bisecting the height of the mizbeach. It's done mechatzi mizbeach l'mayla, from the upper half of the mizbeach. Lefi shenema ba'al karnais hamizbeach. It has to be put on the 4 horns that were on top of the altar. The Ketzad, how does he do it? Kisheloikeach hakayin adam b'mazrek, when the kohen catches the blood in the basin, he takes the basin of blood to the mizbeach, and he dips his right finger next to the thumb, which is called the index finger. He dips the right finger that's smuchel agudel, but that's next to the thumb. He dips his right index finger, badam, into the blood. And he keeps together with the index finger the middle finger, the tall finger, on one side, and the thumb on the other side. And he dabs with these 3 fingers going down, keneged chuda shel keren, against the point of the edge of the horn of the mizbeach, achi yachala kola, and it goes downward in its application, achi yichla kola dam shebetzbai, until all the blood is finished from his finger. V'cheinu oisa b'chol keren b'keren. And so he does such an application on all the horns of the mizbeach. V'imnasan samach la'keren, and if he doesn't do it mamish on the horn, but next to the horn, ka'ama achas mikan or mikan, an ama in one direction or an ama in another direction, kiper, it atones. Now, v'tzorach litbol etzbo al kol keren v'keren. He has to make 4 dippings, 1 dipping for each horn. Ukishigaymer anesina ala keren, when he completes the placement on the horn, he wants to make sure that there's no blood left on his finger before he does the second dipping. He wipes his finger on the edge of the bowl. And then he dips a second time. Because the remainder of the blood on his finger is psulun liten mehen al keren acheres. He can't apply it on the next horn. Ein b'chol karbonis. There is no other carbon, a carbon shetoin azoyis dam be'etzbai, where he does the application with his finger. Ela chatas bilvad, only the sin offering. Shenema ba b'tovel etzbai badam. Only here does it say he dips his finger in the blood. Ve'tzarich she'ei sham dam kidei tefila. There has to be enough blood caught in the clay sharis to dip the finger in. Lo she is safek etzbai badam. He cannot sponge the blood with his finger. We thank you very much for joining us and wish you a wonderful day.